Hey guys, welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. Tonight we are going to be joined by our man Tom Ernisse over at Dolphins Talk. But first, our guys at Handsome Jack.
Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia worldwide with Greg Tompsett and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL. Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You are joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my partner in crime, Aaron. I love the festive hat. I love the look. Man. It's that time of year. We're back for our second Dolphins week.
Ho, ho, ho.
Beautiful, beautiful. How are you doing?
Not great. Weird day. If anyone is on Twitter, it was a super weird day. But you know what? I decided today that I think people need a little more Christmas spirit. So that's why I decided to throw on the Santa hat, get my Santa cop, because it's hard to be a troll and be curmudgeon-y during the Christmas season. So I want to inspire some people to get some Christmas season feelings back about this Buffalo Bills team, about this big matchup, because it has been a weird week and it's a quick turnaround here. So excited to get on this show and kind of get past all that and get on to this Miami Dolphins game, man.
Yeah. A couple of quick things before we bring on our fantastic guest, Tom, over at Dolphins Talk and get into this matchup. Obviously, some nasty stuff today that wasn't tons of fun online. So nothing that you deserved or that anything that was going on should have happened. But unfortunately, that's the world that we live in nowadays. And in a weird connection, we kind of went full circle with someone that I know both you and I had some odd feelings about in the interactions and the way that he left. And that today the Buffalo Bills welcome back Cole Beasley by signing him to the practice squad. Something that, was handled very oddly in the approaches that he took over the last couple of years. And even some comments after he had left where obviously let some personal feelings get the best of him. And I sat and watched his press conference today. And I have to say, I was incredibly impressed. He was contrite. He was sincere. He was humble. He mentioned things that he would like to have over again and mistakes that he made. And that's all you can ask of someone, is that they come in with an open mind and a willingness to approach things in the appropriate manner. And he did. And that, I think there's certainly people that didn't treat him the right way before, and he certainly didn't react the right way or handle them the right way. But he came in today with that mindset. And I won't lie, watching some of the videos and that little stutter step in those option routes and hearing Josh talk about him, I'm more excited than I thought I was going to be for him being back.
Yeah, I mean, there's excitement because of the need for me of what he provided for this offense over the last couple of years. I even during that whole time where I personally had conflicting views with Cole and did not love the way that things were being handled. And I probably also retweeted or said things about Cole that I probably also in hindsight would like to have handled differently. And so I did appreciate that aspect of Cole in the sincerity of saying like, hey, I definitely would have done things a little bit differently if I could go back. And I agree with that. And I feel that all the time, we were talking about this a little offline. I know that I can be abrasive at times and I go off on people sometimes on Twitter, and every once in a while I pull back and it's like, man, I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have gone so hard or whatever it is. And I think we all have those moments. And so I still don't know that some of the things, even as recently as this year, that I totally agree with Cole. And I think he still jumped up on some things that I didn't need to, but to hear the sincerity from him, I think helps. I think it goes along. I think it goes a long way when people are sincere, even if I don't agree with them, to have somebody not look me in the eye, but look dead into the camera and talk about it that way. So that was cool. And all is forgiven in that sense. And let's move on and onward with Cole. I'm happy for that. But kind of, we had heard about this sort of as a rumbling that there was some interest in getting Cole Beasley back. Then you saw the Isaiah McKenzie tweeting at him, which obviously if he was just saying what's up to his friend, as he alluded to, you would just DM that like any normal friends do. So it seemed like this reunion was coming this way. And yeah, I agree. Seeing him and seeing that stutter step and knowing the potential, Greg, as much as I disagreed with him and had frustrations and even some of the stuff he tweeted afterwards, I never wanted to see Cole Beasley leave. Like when we had all these conversations in the offseason, I was very much on, we need to get him back on a lower deal. Like, I still think there's meat on the bone here. I think there's juice. I didn't think that he was 2020 Cole Beasley still, but I was okay with the success and the production that he had in 2021, unlike a lot of people. So even if we can get him back to late season 2021, where he was recovering from an injury still, but still pretty productive, being able to sit in those routes, pick up free yards, all the stuff Brandon Beane talked about today, where it's just the little nuances of that position and understanding the defenses that make a huge difference. And we heard Josh say, like, some of the concepts guys can't even do that we have in our, so we aren't.
He absolutely implied that there's things they couldn't call.
Yes, that we have done in the past because Cole was so much better or was able to do some of those things. So I think it's going to hopefully help and unlock some of those things in the offense. But I am still a little bit pumping my own brakes. It looks good. I am getting excited. I will buy into the PR stuff, but I do want to see it play out on the field, because as much as I think the juice is still there, I do think there's some separation shiftiness. I trust in his hands. Age hits people quick. Like, it just happens at some point. So I do want to see it. I want to see it and confirm it. But all right now feels pretty good to get the band back together with Diggs, Brown, and Beasley.
Yeah. It's exciting to have the potential. And I've been consistent this entire time. Every time I'm asked about it, the Bills desperately need what Cole Beasley was. What he was to this offense, they desperately need that. Yeah. I don't know if he still is that guy, but I'm excited to find out. And the one last comment before we dive into this matchup here is Josh's approach in his press conference today, where he talked about how Cole sees the defense the same way that he does. He sees it like a quarterback. He sees the leverage of two different defenders at the same time. And Eric put out a bunch of different threads today and different video clips that were fantastic. And you can just see where he knows the moment of when to make his cut, because he can tell the defender just made his decision and took the one step the other way. And there's nothing he can do. When I cut this way, he already shifted his weight and it's already too late. I've already got the leverage. It's over. Yeah. And going through that approach and having that guy that not only sees it that way, but sees it the same way the quarterback does, that means their instincts and that quick reaction, you don't have to take that extra step because, they're both seeing it and he knows Cole's going to be right there in that open spot. That's all I need. Catch it, and Cole does that awesome. He catches it, he pivots, he dives forward, gets the extra 3 yards. Boom, we're done. Move on to the next play. I'm good.
I need that and one more thing out of Cole, because even towards the Chris Kepner and I were talking about this in Spaces when we did the emergency Cole Beasley podcast. And one thing that he still provided, even last year when the production dipped, was defensive coordinators, because of how much is on tape in this offense with Josh Allen, with these other receivers. Teams still tried to take away Cole Beasley. There was still coverage, attention towards Cole Beasley, which helps open things up. And I don't think that the Bills, obviously Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen heavy offense, there is nobody else right now. There's a couple playmakers that can get going, but nobody's exploded in production to the point where other defensive coordinators have to take that away and key in on that. And I don't know if Beasley will draw that attention this time around, but I do think that because the success that he's had isn't that far gone, less than a year, I do think if you're a defensive coordinator and you're seeing him as part of the active lineup, like when he's on the field, you're accounting for him. And I do think that you're going to see if his production starts to come in with 4 or 5 catches a game here as he starts to ramp up, I do think you'll see defensive coordinators paying him mind because he's a chain mover for this offense.
Yeah. Our man AJ here in the chat, looking forward to a gentleman that'll be joining us here at Cover One in the spring.
How about the help for like Shakir?
Yeah,
you know, we're talking about all these guys that aren't learning the position and can't do the things that the offense needs them to do in that slot role. What a great time to grab your notebook and just learn from one of the best to do it. That is perfect for this offense, right?
So speaking of the matchup coming up and whether Cole Beasley is going to be a factor, let's bring on our man Tom Ernisse with Dolphins Talk. Tom, how we doing, man?
Good, guys. How you doing?
Good. Welcome back. It's been, obviously a crazy run here for the Dolphins since the last time we had you on. That was the beginning of an undefeated start to the season. The Dolphins, taking first place in the division for a long, healthy run. going on a 5-game win streak and really taking command of, their destiny and everything
Historical
that was there.
Offense.
Historical offensive production. And then recently hitting a little bit of a lull, this West Coast trip, going a little bit rougher out to San Francisco. And then last Sunday night against the Chargers with, probably I'm going to assume that maybe the low point in the season with the performance, the way that it came off. Help us where, coming in with the excitement, getting that start. The 3-game losing streak early was super easily dismissible because of the crazy injuries and the quarterbacks, in play that, Tua was barely involved in any of those. Then the awesome 5-game, offensive fireworks show. Where is the fan base now with these last 2 games?
Some concerned. I kind of lean in that category. I'm a little concerned about what has happened over the last 2 weeks. There are some that are, hey, no problem. There's still 4 games left. And the other camp on the very far side of things is get rid of everybody and start over, as it is the norm in some of Dolphins Twitter world. But there's concern. The concern is the lack of adjustments in the game. Clearly the 49ers saw something on tape, dropping linebackers back an extra 3 to 5 yards post snap, which took away really the throwing lanes. The Dolphins had, Tua led the league for pretty much all season in yards per attempt. And it's no secret they like to throw the ball in the middle of the field. So the 49ers took that away. Granted, it was an off game for Tua. He still threw for 295 yards and a couple touchdowns in that game. But then the Chargers game happened, and it was the same thing again. The Chargers played a lot of press coverage at the line of scrimmage, did not let the free releases of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, which disrupted the flow of the play. And it was just another bad showing and at the wrong time. If the Dolphins could have taken one of those 2 games, this is a whole different conversation. Miami would need likely one more win to get into the playoffs, being at 9-4 at this point, but being at 8-5, now they got to scratch and claw and win out essentially to secure a playoff spot. If not, then they're going to have to get some help.
Is it already to that point of having to win out?
Winning out guarantees it.
Right.
3-1 they're in.
I was going to say, they can't be that far about. Yeah.
If they only,
they're not backed up against the wall right now.
No, not yet. But if they drop, they drop the game Saturday against Buffalo and say they lay an egg on Christmas, they have to win the last 2. So
the weird part is you have obviously 8 wins in hand is already key. 2 division wins and 6 conference wins in hand. The Dolphins have some valuable pieces, but the way the AFC playoffs are right now, you have 9 teams with 7 wins.
Right.
So you can go from 6th to 9th in 1 week with the shifts that are moving around, and you have teams jumboing. Both the Patriots went from out of the playoffs to in the playoffs. The Jets went from in the playoffs to out of the playoffs. It's all shifting very quickly when you have all those teams within 1 win of each other. And that's even, Tennessee now stumbling to have Jacksonville catching them. So I agree. I think most metrics have the Dolphins at a pretty high percentage to make it, but they still got to have for sure 2 wins in this stretch, if not 3.
So
absolutely.
Talking into that point of the last couple of games and sort of what's happened there with, specifically in that last Chargers game of teams trying to take away that middle passing. Do you think that is hey, we're seeing the strength and we're going to take that away? Or is it a disrespect for the inability of the Miami Dolphins to get something going on the ground and being able to kind of go away from that, not necessarily account for that in the same way and really just try to take away the strength?
I think it's a little bit of both. Clearly, a defense wants to take away the strength of the offense, but it's also the lack of establishing a ground game that I think teams are now daring the Dolphins to run the football, to throw it short, throw it at the line, within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, and let Yak take care of itself. They have to change it up. Mike McDaniel, this is a pivotal stretch for him. I think he's a very smart offensive coach. I think at times he needs to just swallow his pride and, change it up. And Buffalo's defense clearly top 3 easily in the league in pretty much every statistical category. So they have to play an absolute perfect game Saturday night in Buffalo to win it. But to me, the biggest aspect, and I've been hammering it like every pregame show, postgame show, run the football. Please just run the ball. I don't care if they get 2 yards a carry, 3 yards a carry. You have to establish something on the ground to force defense. Okay, we have to respect it. The linebackers move in closer to the line of scrimmage. That opens the things back up over the top, and now you can play your strengths.
Sort of in that, wanting to go to run the ball. Obviously, we'll get into the weather. The weather might play into that here on Saturday night anyway. Yeah. With you guys, do you think that the Buffalo defense is a very good run defense, right? How much are you going to lean into trying to force that versus what you said, which is really, playing into the strength, right? I do feel like one of the Bills' problems right now with the offense that I see is they're not dictating to other teams, right? They're not the ones coming out there and telling you, hey, this is how we're going to play this game. I do think teams sometimes get in trouble and make games a little bit closer than they are when they are trying to be different or trying to establish something that they aren't. Would you worry about that in a game like this where you're going to the teeth of this defense and trying to establish that run, which isn't necessarily your strength, but again, the weather might play into, hey, we have to do this, right?
Yeah, there's been sparks this year on the ground with Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson. There have been moments where, the run game you could do no wrong. 5, 6, 7, 8 yards, a run. I think it was the Cleveland game. Both Wilson and Mostert had 20+ yard runs, and they did anything they wanted to against Cleveland. Now, going against Buffalo. Is it smart to run into the teeth of the defense? Probably not. But you have to scheme something to have the Bills linebackers say, all right, they're running the ball. They're effective. They're getting 3-4 yards a run. They're getting 3rd and short. All right, we got to play a little closer to the line of scrimmage. Now Tua can say, all right, let's hit the quick hitters. Let's hit, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle over the middle, pick up those chunk plays, 10, 15 yards. They've been relying on those chunk plays all season. So they really have to try to establish. And like you said, the weather's going to play a factor in it one way or the other. I don't think they completely lose their identity, but they have to change something because clearly teams are taking away what Miami does so well this year.
So, Tom, let's take a look at this injury report here because I know both teams have some really impactful players on the list. I know that the Dolphins have been really careful in managing Terron Armstead's practice workload, and this is all estimations because they didn't practice Tuesday, and it's a walkthrough Wednesday. So for both teams, and the Bills are doing
Milano's probably the same way.
Yeah, the exact same thing. We'll really know tomorrow whether we have a legit shot with these guys, and then get the announcements after that. But I know one name that went out of the game was Jeff Wilson, and you mentioned him. He was, at least giving that combination, and at one point he kind of taken the role from Raheem Mostert. Mm-hmm. What are you hearing on Jeff Wilson? And then are you concerned about Armstead, or do you think this is maintenance?
It's always been maintenance. The man just doesn't practice throughout the year, and he's performed pretty well this year. So not too worried about Armstead. I hate seeing that the knee, now there's a knee injury that popped up. I mean, the guy is just a walking injury report, but he shows up to play every week, and that's why they paid him in the offseason.
The injuries that show up, that's just if you get a treatment, though. So that could just be his knee's sore and he got an additional treatment.
The toe has been bothering him since week 1. The pec injury occurred a couple of weeks ago. The knee might just be something that happened on Sunday to get treatment for that. But, looking at the injury report, Tyreek Hill going back to full practice is nice to see. They were worried about his ankle during the game on Sunday. Clearly, it's not going to be a hindrance for him.
Same Jeff with Kohu going to full.
Yep. Jeff Wilson, from what has been said at this point, he is going to do everything he can to play. Not sure how serious the hip injury is. Clearly with what McDaniel said Monday. They said they got good news on it, so it's nothing significant, but is it something that he can play with is the question. Is it a hip pointer? Is it, did he, hopefully it's not serious enough. Hopefully he's able to suit up. If not, it's going to be Savon Ahmed and Myles Gaskin, who aren't really that power back that Jeff Wilson is. And they're more of receiving backs and outside the tackle kind of runners. Outside of that, concerning? Not at this point. And Melvin Ingram's vet rest, and
right,
he's good to go. Eric Rowe injury with the hamstring, that could be something to definitely look into. He's been starting after Brandon Jones went out with the injury, which was unfortunate. And Rowe's been playing pretty well next to Javon Holland. But if not, then it'll be Veron McKinley that will take that spot of Eric Rowe. But that, again, the secondary is missing some key pieces, and losing another guy would be detrimental for sure.
Yeah, the Bills certainly have experienced some of those cluster injuries where you start to get to the second and third layers underneath. And the Bills, I think the three names in the do not participate window is the ones to watch there. Jordan Phillips didn't play last game. Matt Milano was kind of similar to what you talked about with Armstead. He didn't practice most of last week, got in a limited on Friday, played in the game. I think that's what people are expecting.
That
here,
is
but
what I'm anticipating.
Yeah, I'm hoping.
Repeat?
I think Ryan Bates is the more questionable one.
Yes.
That one is certainly something to watch here. We also have Ike Bacher potentially being activated. His 21-day practice window is coming up.
Insane with a big man with Achilles. Crazy.
Yeah. The fact that he's ready to come back is very crazy. But so going beyond some of those, we're now into the matchup here. What are some of the things that you think have changed since the last time? Obviously, Jeff Wilson wasn't on the team the last time that we played. We've certainly seen that offensive explosion during that stretch and that downfield game. You've seen the pivot where, obviously lots of people talked about it with Fred Warner, and then you saw the Chargers kind of mimic that with, pressing some of the receivers, dropping the linebackers back, trying to force Tua to make those decisions underneath. What do you expect Mike McDaniel, and more so on the field, Tua, their pivot to be? Are you expecting it to be more to the run? Are you expecting it more to be the underneath passing game, or some combination of the two?
I feel it's going to be a combination of the two. I think they are going to, take those, 3 to 5 yard, quick hitters, the hitches, out patterns, just to, again, bring those corners up, bring those linebackers up to the line of scrimmage a little bit closer. And then maybe you can take your opportunities down the field again. But running the football, establishing the run is key. The week 3 game in Miami, Buffalo held the ball for 42 minutes. The 49ers held the ball a couple weeks ago for like 39 minutes, and the Chargers had it for 40 minutes on Sunday night. So they are not on the field enough, and I think that's one of the big key changes is, establish drives, nice, 6 to 10 play drives, chew up some clock, keep Josh Allen on the sideline, get some points on the board, and see what your defense can bring to the table in this game.
Let's talk about that defense a little bit. Obviously, Chubb wasn't around when we were facing you guys last. You guys traded for him. But one thing that I see in these games that have popped up to me is it seems like this Miami defense has been known for years of their aggressive nature, bringing extra guys, sending that blitz. I'm seeing a lot of teams sort of daring them to do that with some of the banged up stuff going on in the secondary, and willing to take some of the small, hey, let's get it to our running back in space and then force these guys to tackle and kind of taking advantage of the over aggressiveness of this Miami defense. Do you think they can continue to play the style, kind of talking the same thing, right? Like there's a stylistic thing that they're just kind of trying to hammer home here. Can they continue to do that without having the horses behind them to make, because when you're sending extra guys, man, you're really putting a lot on the defensive backs. Do they have the team to play the style that they would prefer to right now?
Well, the key cog of what's been missing, and it's going to continue to miss this year, is that extra guy on the other side of Xavier Howard to play that man coverage. Yeah. If you're able to play man to man with your guys, that allows you to open up things because you're your corners are able to hang with those wide receivers for a period of time, where those coverage sacks became more frequent, say last year, where this year it's not as frequent. But over the last, since Bradley Chubb has come aboard, one of the key pieces on this defense, well, really two on the defensive line, Christian Wilkins, first and foremost, is continuing to play.
Tell him to stay away from grabby. Don't get grabby. Can you message him?
I don't need him getting kicked out of a game.
He was a monster in that Chargers game, man.
He's so good.
He's tremendous. And the other guy is Jalen Phillips. He has really started to come around since Bradley Chubb has come aboard. He's just dominating at the line of scrimmage. He's so quick, so fast getting to the quarterback and causing some of that disruption. And you need that kind of rhythm up front on the defensive line to play against a guy like Josh Allen. Now, they have to mix their coverages up. They can't just sit there and play man, because Josh Allen's going to eat you alive by running the ball. So I think they're going to mirror a lot what they did in game one, where they show pressure, back off pressure, and then, try to get some confusion for Josh on what, who's coming where and what's going to happen, change the protections, whatever. That to me is a key piece of this game is what this defensive line can do up front against the Bills offensive line. And can they establish pressure with just sending Chubb, Phillips, Christian Wilkins going through the middle? Can they get some form of pressure to maybe disrupt the flow of the offense for the Bills?
Other teams have, for sure. But we got to talk about this weather, because clearly this game can't get talked about with having sun. We know there's going to be some wintry mix of weather here in Buffalo, New York. For this one, it's going to be cold. It's a night game. It's definitely going to be cold. I really want to ask you mostly about Mike McDaniel's approach to this and sort of the mind over matter. And I think he had a t-shirt on today about it not being cold enough or something like to that effect. Yeah. Do you believe that it is an interesting approach? Do you think it's just, hey, there's nothing you can do anyway. We're down in Miami. There's no way really to prepare for this. So who cares? Like, what's your approach to how they're going about really? And this is for Tua, right? The first time he's really playing outdoors in the winter.
Yeah, he struggled in Tennessee last year when the temperatures were in the 30s. That was essentially that was their playoff, and he just fell flat in that game. He did not play well at all. I think the approach to the game and the mindset is it's not just the Dolphins have to play in it, it's also the Bills. And I think that's the message he's trying to get across to the team is it's, we live in Florida. It's hot. We're going to somewhere where it's cold. Tough it out. It's a mind over matter situation. Your guys aren't the only ones that are playing in it. And this is, you hit adversity, and this is a division opponent, and they want revenge. The Bills have had the Dolphins number for many years now. And the fact that the Dolphins were able to get away with that game in week 3 down in South Florida, I think the Bills are chomping at the bit to get to this game on Saturday and to, to show the Dolphins that they may be still the kings of the division and still own them to a point. But this is a game where the Dolphins have to go in there and counterpunch. This is where they cannot shy away. They cannot back down from the fight. They're not only fighting for their playoff lives, they are fighting for at least this chance to still get to the AFC crown, and getting a win on Saturday would go a long way, because that would be a sweep of the Bills. But this is a tall order and a tall task, and we'll see if the guys are up for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly if you look at some of the upcoming matchups, if the Dolphins were able to get a win, they can have some hope in that upcoming Monday night game with the Bengals and the Bills, and all of a sudden you have the tiebreaker in hand, plus at that point it would be a controlling division tiebreaker. So certainly something very powerful for them there, and it's going to be interesting to see, can that mind over matter approach that it seems Tua and McDaniel are both taking, what's that going to be like when it is a 30-mile-an-hour wind and you have Tua trying to drive a ball and trying to see, like, okay, how is this going to work? And I think it's spot on that, the Bills have to deal with that too, and they'll have to.
And Sean McDermott said that, like, both teams
be there, and
we all have to play in it, right?
Yeah. I mean, Josh Allen was very clear in his presser today. He didn't like the cold either. He was joking about how his toes were still cold from being out there in practice.
Yeah.
He said,
I think the difference is, right, we have we have, even though it's still small sample size of Josh playing in the cold, we have sample size of Josh playing in those conditions to maybe not his top level of being able to play, but to a level that we know that he can play in those conditions, right? And I think for Miami fans, that's probably going into this game, one of the biggest unknowns for this matchup is how does he perform? And we saw it with Mac Jones a year ago coming up to Buffalo, and that he had never also played being in Alabama. I think the coldest game he had played in was like in the 40s. And that was a big thing for Patriots. Like, how is he going to react to playing in the cold? Because they hadn't had cold games in New England yet. And so I don't know if it's a thing. And I think that they have enough equipment and they'll have the heaters and they'll have all this stuff. But I do think, if you don't know, that's got to have some level of anxiety going into it.
Absolutely. It's, again, they have to be able to sort it out, and that's really where the Mike McDaniel game plan comes into play. Are you going to establish a ground game? Are you going to be comfortable doing those those quick passes, the screen, the bubble screens, the running back screens, and be able to move the sticks in that regards? Because in a game where it's going to be windy, it's going to be cold, and if there is a wintry mix, the ball's going to be frozen essentially. So they have to be able to find ways to move the football. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to try the New England approach and run the ball 50 times in a game and throw only 3. That was the weirdest game I ever watched, by the way. But they have to try to figure out ways to allow Tua to be successful in those conditions and be able to still be effective in running their system, those 10, 15-yard intermediate throws, and see if Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle could break one open. That's really the key for me. We'll see what they do. I'm interested to see if they do change the game plan up, but if it stays the same, I'll probably finish a whole bottle of Jack before it's over.
So you're not going to be at the game? No, you're not necessarily Western New York, but you're right here. Is Rochester Western New York?
Technically, yes.
Is it?
Technically,
okay.
It is.
Well, welcome.
But I think the last time I was at a Bills game was 2015. I think it was a Thursday night game.
All right. How about this? I'm gonna put you on the spot here live. Let's go to one.
Okay.
You and I. Let's do a whole tweet about it.
Right. Yeah,
make it a whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, so speaking of the matchup, we've gone through the weather, we've gone through the new players involved, we've gone through the ups and downs of this season. We're going to put you on the spot. What is your prediction of what you expect this weekend, and what's your score?
I'm not feeling good about it. I took the Bills in week 3. I said until the Dolphins can beat the Bills, I'll continue to pick against Miami in these games. But this is a game where the Dolphins absolutely have to have it, win in the AFC, win in the division. Over the last 2 weeks, I lost my confidence in the system. I've lost a little bit of my swag, so to speak, and when talking about the offense. But I think this game is going to be close. Overall, I do believe the Dolphins will lose. I think it'll be a 24-20 game.
I think that it's going to be very.
I feel like you're reverse jinxing us again a little bit,
sneaky.
though.
I think you're sneaky.
I see what you're doing.
We're on.
Okay, you caught on. All right.
No, we appreciate it. Why don't you let the folks know where they can find all the good stuff going on? We love having you on for these matchups each year and all the good stuff going on over at Dolphins Talk.
Go to the website, dolphinstalk.com. You can follow me on Twitter at DolphinsTalkTom. Our podcast is on Apple Podcast and Podbean. We got shows every single week, every single day, talking Dolphins football, but really talking about everything at this point, because we're at that point of the year where we have to scoreboard watch and hope for the best.
Yeah, we appreciate it, and hopefully I think we're going to have an interesting and aesthetically pleasing game. I think it's going to be a pretty game with
we got the red jerseys
little bit of the
coming
snow
out.
coming down, the red versus the white. It's going to be interesting to be able to watch, and I appreciate everything that you bring to the table.
Yeah, and I appreciate everything you bring to the table. You're always there for us online. You always have nothing but nice things to say. We appreciate that, and I hope you and your family have an absolutely fantastic, happy holiday season, my friend.
I appreciate it. I hope you guys as well have a great holiday with you and your families. And if whoever is watching, potentially in Bill's PR, get these guys some damn credentials to go sit in the booth and cover the games live. Okay, these guys deserve it. These are the best Buffalo Bills guys when it comes to coverage of the team.
We appreciate you, man.
Means a lot, Tom. We appreciate it.
And we'll send the check. Greg will take care of the check for that.
Yeah, make sure my loyalties get here.
Yeah,
we appreciate you. All right, thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Always a pleasure to have Tom on, and we meet you guys. Go over
friend.
and check out what they have going on at Dolphins Talk. They do an awesome job. They're very similar to what we do at Cover One.
They've built a really cool,
and built a really cool community for the fans down there. It's weird. It is a weird game going in, because a lot of those same feelings that I had going into the other Dolphins game. Josh Allen had owned the Dolphins. It was 6 straight. It was 7-1 overall. We were a Charles Clay weird Hail Mary catch away from literally never losing to them. And then I went back and watched it again, and they did lose that game. But God, that was a weird game. And you got down to third string center and right guard and right tackle, and guys literally collapsing and going to the sideline, and just a weird game that I don't, it's cheesy to say they didn't deserve the win. The Dolphins won. They figured out a way to do it. The Dolphins won. But I'd be lying if I felt like if they played that game 10 times, the Bills don't win 7 or 8 of them.
I talked to a few people that were not Bills fans and didn't have bias after that game, and they just couldn't comprehend how the Bills lost that game. And it felt so bad for Josh Allen at the end of that game, because they could see the exhaustion in his face, and that he clearly just gave everything on the field that day. And I think that was the most frustrating part, is he was really close. If there was maybe a minute left on that clock, if there was an extra minute, the Bills win that game. And that's how close that one was, with all the weirdness, with the weather, with the heat stroke essentially happening to people left and right towards the end of that game. And so, yeah, it's a weird one. Sort of reminds me of how weird that first Jets one was, where you just had a list of all these just weird oddball things that kind of were going into it. But then again, now we have this weird of, we were reading that weather report, and of course it says right now 1 to 3 inches during the day on Saturday, maybe 1 to 3 inches in the evening, not as snowy maybe in the evening. But then there's also this potential of a possible lake effect thing, which in Western New York, who knows? It could be 1 to 3 inches. It could be snowing 2 inches an hour. We don't really know. So
this can pivot so crazy last minute.
It could, and that could just make everything a little bit wonkier in a game like this. But I do think I would love to see these two teams just play on neutral turf. I'm not a dome guy, but I would like to see it, because both of these games are going to be clouded probably a little bit with elements, right? Either team that walks away from this will have some, we played in the heat. We played in a snowstorm. I want to see them play on neutral ground, because I do think it's a closer matchup than maybe Bills fans want to admit. And I want to see really who is that better team, because I think it's the Bills. And I would like to see it displayed that way. And I don't know that we're going to get that this Saturday. And I think that's maybe my biggest frustration is I think the Bills can go in and win this game. And I think that they're better prepared to do that in this type of weather. But I want to see how much they could do without these types of conditions.
Well, talking about what kind of matchup this is with the two teams, if they were on a neutral field, it'll be interesting to see how the DVOA matchup plays out when it's with the conditions added in. But
when somebody does the graphics right,
when somebody
doesn't screw up the graphic. And you know what was wrong with this graphic, Greg, is I have this template up and I just add in the information and the Bills have had the sweep so many weeks in a row that I totally forgot to start.
Not used to the fact that it's possible someone's actually better than us in one of the categories.
That is not okay. Yeah, no. So we'll run over for those that are listening via podcast and are not seeing the graphic. This is your my weekly DVOA matchups comp. I just do the kind of total overall look at these teams. Overall, Buffalo is still second. Overall, they were down 1 last week. They were first in overall DVOA. They're down 1 spot to second.
I believe did the Cowboys move to first?
Cowboys moved to first, yeah. And I think Philly's 3. DVOA overall, the Miami Dolphins are 8th. Last week, the Bills played the 9th team. So this is another thing, Greg. We knew this schedule was going to be tough in that first 6-week stretch, right? and it was tough. I think some of those games were maybe not as tough as we thought they were, but these AFC East games are a lot more challenging and a lot more difficult, especially even on paper, than we initially thought they were, making this whole schedule a lot more difficult
100%.
for the Bills, making it a little bit more impressive.
Through it for years now, and now all of a sudden it's much more competitive.
Yeah, and it makes it a little bit more impressive where they're at with DVOA. So Jets are another top 10 team that the Bills are going to face here, at least in terms of according to DVOA. Overall offense, these teams are right there. Bills are fourth, Miami's third. Both of them kind of just been hanging out here. When you dive a little bit deeper into the offensive side of the ball, Bills are third in pass, and they've stayed right there here for a couple of weeks, and they are moving up. Greg, if you've been listening to this podcast, people, we started in the 30s in DVOA and rush offense, got up into the 20s. Last week we're sitting at 19 overall, I think, and now they're 15th. Overall, going into this one with rush offense. So it is now you're at average NFL. Like that's, you know me, that's where I'm happy to be. Let's have that run game average.
And then that top end passing.
Certainly. So with the overall for third with Miami, they are the first overall passing offense. I think everybody knows that. DVOA says that. Every other piece of data point says that. And they're the 17th overall rushing offense. But that is actually started to creep in the wrong direction for them. They were, like to Tom's point, they were up in the higher teens for a long time, and they've started to slide down. So the Bills are trending in the right direction with rushing offense. Miami's trending in the wrong way. Here's where you start to really see a split in these teams. And it's exactly what Tom and we were kind of talking about here. Bills still fourth overall defense, that stayed the same. They're seventh overall in the pass, that stayed the same. They're third overall on run defense. One interesting note, Greg, that I was looking up in DVOA, the Bills are number one in stop percentage against the run in the league. And so we know they have a lot of missed tackles. We know that that's been a problem that's popped up, but they are stopping the run more. It's
been
all
anyone. Or nothing. And for anyone who doesn't know, stop percentage, stop means getting a win. So it's a tackle for a loss. It's a negative play, or it's less than half of the yards needed, or not converting on a third and fourth down. So if you make a stop that ends a drive, that's a stop. If you give up less than half the yards on first or second down than what's needed, that's a stop. So the Bills are either making a very positive play or a negative play for the offense, or unfortunately missing tackles and giving up a whole bunch, but at least they're being aggressive and using those run blitzes.
Yeah, and the missed tackles don't seem to be popping up into anything that's getting any of the data here out of control or anything. Like they're still only giving up 70 points a game.
It's frustrating, but it's not actually, it's the reason that they're not historically awesome. It's not the reason that they're bad.
This is the kind of game where it rears its head if you're not tackling, right?
Yeah, these are the guys who can break it.
These are the guys that are going to break it open.
Even not Hill, you have Waddle, you have Raheem Mostert. Like they have speed all over.
Jeff Wilson, if he's healthy. Like there's guys here that can break away and get open. So continuing on this, they are 17th overall in defense, 22nd overall in the pass, and that has continued to just decline here throughout the season. And they're 8th overall in the run. So pretty fine run defense there. I think that it's more that teams are just kind of taking the choice to pass on them more consistently. And you're seeing also a lot of teams in that stretch, that 5-game stretch you talked about, where they were playing catch up, right? You had like some of these bad teams that were playing against them were trying to play catch up.
And you do have some, Jalen Phillips, Christian Wilkins, Bradley Chubb, like you do have some, some up front, and then it gets a little more questionable the further you move back.
Absolutely. And then this is the one I tweeted it out because I couldn't wait for the show. And this is a huge split to me right here on special teams. And in a snowy weather, wintry mixed Saturday night game, this kind of stuff can rear its head here. Bills consistently have been in the top 3 all year on special teams. Miami Dolphins are 31st in DVOA special teams. These are the kind of games. I think this is going to be a close game, Greg. I think that they've been playing, even the games that they have struggled in here recently, they had still within 1 score in the fourth quarter. And I think this is the type of game that where maybe a special team, something or another. Hines has been real close to breaking one. You know what I mean? There's been real, great coverage on some of these kicks by Saran Neal and Taiwan Jones. Something might happen in a game like this that gives the Bills the edge.
So Chewy Baca here asking, what does DVOA mean? DVOA means defense adjusted value over average.
Yes,
which means how did you do compared to how other teams do? Like last week against the Jets, we didn't do great on offense, but nobody does great on offense against the Jets, so it didn't hurt as much. Whereas other teams, you do compared to, hey, when the Bills beat the Browns or beat whatever different game, it's how do other teams normally perform against them on a play-by-play basis, and then how did you do? And then they adjust that to say, hey, here's how you did in those defense adjusted movements in the value over average compared to how they normally do.
Yeah. So, and the reason I use this just I always forget, like I've been talking about this so long that not everybody's been watching and following with DVOA. The reason I like this, and I think you like it too, Greg, is I'm a huge, I'm anti total yardage stats. It drives me nuts when I turn on a ESPN show and they're like, well, they're the first offense in the league because they lead the league in total yardage. It's like, all right, let's like pump the brakes on that stuff. Yardage has no context, and DVOA applies context. And something that Greg and I are big fans of, Joe Marino talks about a lot of the times, is comparing ourselves to our peers league wide, because we could sit here and say this guy sucks, that guy sucks, our team sucks. But do they? Like when you look at it with the other 32 teams, or even the top 10 teams in the league, like you need some barometer to compare it to. DVOA builds that into the context of the data. So it's better than that raw yardage or yards per play or yards per game.
We'll use the Eagles. They're rightfully third, but the reason they're not first is because they played a really soft schedule. And you're supposed to be really good against a really soft schedule that's not that good. So it's why they're third, which is good. But if you look at a lot of metrics, people would ask, well, why aren't they first? They have the best record. They have, they're first in all kinds of other statistics. Well, they've actually played a really soft schedule, so they're supposed to be really good. And
those are the numbers they're supposed to be putting up. Like they're performing to where they're supposed to be, right?
Yeah. So, obviously we have the new people in mind. We have Cole Beasley back for the Bills. We have the weather that's going to be a factor. We've talked through the matchup. You've talked through DVOA. We've talked.
Well, I got a couple more DVOA things for you. I know you're going here. Okay, I got some. I would like to look for a little extra tidbits here, real quick. I'll run right through them. Red zone DVOA. This one's an interesting one. This is a big matchup, Greg. Miami's offense is second in the NFL in red zone DVOA overall. Buffalo's defense is first in the NFL. And if this is where that games like this are going to be won, is if the Bills can get a 1 or 2 stops. I don't think in a game like this, I don't know that they're going to get to the red zone a ton, but if they do, the Bills got to get those stops and force those field goals. That's how you beat a team like Miami. So that's a big one to watch. That's strength versus strength right there. And I love those matchups to see how they play out. Then we have on 3rd and 4th down pass, Miami's defense is 23rd overall in the NFL, covering 3rd and 4th down pass, which we'll get to the Bills in a second. On 3rd and 4th down pass is not great. But the Buffalo Bills offense is 6th. So again, money downs. We know 3rd and 4th are money downs. That's a matchup to watch, but it doesn't get better on the other side of the ball. Miami's offense is 2nd overall. Bills defense is 29th. So keeping an eye on money downs in this game. But where that's going to come into play here is on 1st down. 1st down pass, Miami's offense is 1st overall. Buffalo's defense is 2nd overall. Again, strength versus strength on 1st down here. 1st down all. Miami's offense is 2nd. Buffalo's defense is 2nd. You've got 2 strengths going up against each other. And I think this is a spot, Greg, where I think the matchup's going to be made, because if the Bills can win on some of these 1st downs, keep them behind the chains, keep Tua behind schedule, force Tua to do some stuff on 3rd downs in a game like this with a Jordan Poyer back, with, hopefully a Kyer Elam, with a Tre'Davious White back, I think you can force him to. Some of the balls he's thrown up over the past couple of weeks are interceptable passes, turnover-worthy throws, if you will. And I think that if you can win those early downs, which they're good at, you're not going to win every one of them, but if you can get them a couple where they're behind the chains and get those turnovers.
A key to life, a happiness. Find someone.
Well, I can't talk about toxic differential anymore because Sharp stopped taking.
Yeah, unfortunately, we lost some of our toxic differential data to be able to put together. But
all right, turned it back over to you. Sorry.
Well, no, I think that the context that you added is going to be what decides this. And I've been looking at it. We talk about where this matchup was. We talk about how weird that early season matchup was. I've been, sadly right on a couple of these things in the big Tyler Bass game. And last week I was kind of on the under, and that it was going to be a slow slog of a game, and we needed to, be prepared for how good that Jets defense was. This Dolphins defense isn't that good. You can pass on them. We can move the ball and pass the ball here. I think there's going to be some points scored. I think there's going to be enough wind that maybe it mutes it a tiny bit. I don't think we see a lot of field goals. I think we see some aggression going for it on 4th down, which can swing things. Sometimes that gives you more big plays. It can also give you some turnovers and things that are there. I think this is going to be an interesting game. I think that this Dolphins offense is too good for us to keep to expect some crazy blowout. They're going to score. They have good players. They have guys who can break big plays. I think that they've gotten embarrassed a little bit the last 2 games and they're going to make some adjustments. I hope that we follow some of that. I've seen some questions here in the chat. I know that both of us and Eric both kind of hope that this is a game we deploy Kaiir Elam, because we did in week 3. We did more press man. This is the kind of matchup he would make sense to play in. But we'll see. I don't know if they're going to use him, but I hope that.
And I'm a little worried about Trey in press man after watching.
Yeah, is he ready for that?
Maybe some reps
maybe to be able to do it. So we'll see where that goes. But I think that they are going to use some of those things. We have the linebackers to drop in coverage to cause some problems here, and I think it's going to make it look a little bit weirder than what people expect. I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think we see the over. I think they cover. I've got the Bills 35-24. Okay. I think the Dolphins put up some scores, but I really think the Bills can move the ball on this defense and feel right again. I think the last couple of games, we don't feel good about this offense, and I think we're going to leave this game feeling good about the offense again and feeling like we have that championship caliber offense. And as someone obviously asked in the post-game presser whether this offense is capable of winning the Super Bowl, I think that we're going to come out of this game feeling like we have an offense capable of winning the Super Bowl.
What does that even mean? I've been pondering capable of winning a Super Bowl offenses for all week. Anyways, I can't get a good read on this game, Greg, and I think it's the weather is messing with me and it being on a Saturday night, but I think I have it as a 24-20. I had it the same. I think that's what Tom said, right? 24-20. I have it as a close game. Miami's been, even though they have not been playing well, they've been playing close games. Although that Chargers game probably should have gotten out of control. That fumble touchdown.
Made it look closer than what it was.
Yeah, it was pretty wacky, but
at one point, Tua was 3 of 20.
Yeah, it was not good.
3 of 20.
And I do think he has a similar slow start. I do think the weather is going to have an impact on him. I think the cold, you can't do anything to prepare to come up to Buffalo, New York and play in this. Dude, I took the
just
trash
to remind
out.
everyone, the perfect game that the Bills played in, last year was negative differential with wind in a very similar forecast. So like everybody in the chat, a lot of people that, that's crazy. Are you crazy? The Bills scored 49 points against the Patriots, against Bill Belichick defense with -5 wind chill and wind. So, just settle down on what you think the weather is going to do to this game. It doesn't mean that they're not going to be able to move the ball.
But I do think the weather's going to have an impact on this game, and I think that it'll impact Tua early in this one, and I think that they get out to a slow start, and I think the Bills probably get out to a hot start in this a little bit, and it feels like we're going to blow them out and run away with this game, but then I think it slows down a little bit, and I think that Miami gets back into it a little bit. The Bills kind of lull their way to winning this game out, and it's not the fun blowout party that I want for Christmas week, but more, hey, we got the job done against a really good team. Like that's where I'm scared to really say that this team's going to come out and blow them out, because I've seen how scrappy Miami is. This is a team that, like Tom said, I hate playing desperate teams, man. They need a win like this bad, and they want to prove that they are at the top of the AFC still. So I think they're coming out with something to prove. I think ultimately the weather's going to be too much. This team's going to be too much. I do think the Bills are going to be able to attack the aggressive nature of this Miami team. I don't see them doing what they did last game and just dropping back into zone. I don't think they'll play the same card twice. Josh Allen's too smart. Yeah. He's going to have all that on film. I think at least they'll show some wrinkles. And I think they're going to get exposed. I think Allen's going to take advantage of it. And I think they'll finally put the touchdowns on that they weren't able to in that last game. But I still had a tough time going with that 7.5 point spread that's out there. Yeah. I had a 24-20. No, but that still covers the over-under, right? It was 43. I have it at 44.
Yeah, 43. So I think that a big piece that we're going to see, here is you touched on it. We need to get over this, whether it's ugly wins or whatever it is. I don't care. They're simply in survive and advance mode now. They are simply in a mode where you need to get a win any way possible, find a way, move forward. Obviously we don't feel better with a clean, impressive offensive performance that everybody feels good about how dangerous and explosive they are. But ultimately, people don't remember how many games you watched Bill Belichick and Tom Brady over the last 20 years sneak their way out of that they didn't deserve, and that, oh my gosh, they did it again. How did they find a way to win that game? I can't believe they had them on the ropes, and look, they found a way to win again. And it didn't matter. A win is a win. It got them into the playoffs, and they got hot at the right time, and then they won some of those playoff games that they didn't deserve. We need to get over this idea of style points and needing to feel good about power rankings, and where just win. Just win. Find a
Yeah.
way to win. We are a good team now. We're always
The
going to have a shot at winning.
the two most like average NFL scores of all time when you take all the scores is like 2-3, it's like 27-24 or 20 to 17. Like it's
20,
3
20 to 17, 24-20. Those are the most common scores.
Close. What we kind of view now, which is weird, is lower scoring game or mid scoring games, right? If you're not scoring over 30, it's like a mid scoring game. Like that is the average NFL game. Because it's a good league, man. These games are all close. They're one score games for the most part. So I do think the Bills have some more blowouts in them. And I do think we'll see some football that maybe isn't reminiscent of last year's stretch, but harkens back to some of that just domination. I think some of those are still in there. We've seen performances here where the meat was on the bone to have those performances, and that we just didn't execute for whatever reason. I just don't know if it's today, but or on Saturday, but God, that'd be fun. I want that. It's going to be a late night for us, man.
Yeah. So speaking of which, we will be back here with you. We are going to have plenty of more fun things going on. If you're not aware, our awesome producer Chris Kepner and Aaron have been doing all kinds of cool spaces on Twitter. So make sure you're watching for those, inviting people on to be able to come. We do a lot of those on Friday morning. Maybe another one on during the day on Saturday as we get ready. Then our guys over at the Air Raid Hour have been doing our awesome preview show. So they're going to be on with you guys leading into that game sometime around 6:30, 7 o'clock, leading into the kickoff. We will go with our Saturday night special here. And then Aaron and I will be on with you immediately following that game, sometime around midnight, 11:45, some crazy time in the middle of the night because we're crazy people. But we will be there for you the entire time. Aaron, anything for the people before we say goodnight?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's the holiday season, so I hope that you are enjoying it. I hope everybody's families is all ready for the holidays. And I just, to your point, Greg, one of the Kansas City guys tweeted it out, and you shared it. A bunch of people shared it. It was a meme of like them drowning and saying how bad, we don't beat teams by enough. God. We don't, we're not doing anything. And then they're actually just sitting in the other side shows, just sitting in the shallow end at second in the AFC and 10-3 record. And the Bills are even first. And so like, that was a good reminder of, to your point of the Patriots, that type of success of, we're not beating teams by enough. These are the problems that I've wanted and waited for my entire life, that the Bills have 10 wins before Christmas and that we didn't beat teams by enough on the way to it. Like, sign me up for the rest of my life for these problems. So have a little bit of perspective of where this team's at, and enjoy this game. It's a weird one, Saturday night, but it should be a fun, festive, like you said. I think it'll look good, and it'll play. You'll see a lot of Christmas hats and stuff out like there. So it's a fun time of year for football.
Absolutely. So we appreciate it very much. Thanks to our man, Chris Kepner, keeping all the chats coming up here and everything that they have. Thank you to our man, Tom Ernisse from Dolphins Talk, to be able to come on and be able to share all the cool things going on down there in Miami and the coverage that they have. Thank you to the chat. You guys were awesome here tonight. This was a ton of fun. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I'm Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo.